Hello Internet, and welcome to Ramblings of a Madman. I'm Alex, and I'm joined by Sean and Stuart for a shallow and probably uninformed dive into unexplained mysteries, conspiracy theories, and the supernatural. How are we all doing today? You okay, Sean?
Yeah, I'm decent. Good to be back, as always. Pretty sure I've said that a billion times, but...
You okay, Stuart?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Yeah, thoroughly excited to be back, ready to go for another episode.
Nice. This should be quite a fun one, I think.
Ooh.
Because today, the episode is going to be on Stonehenge.
Ooh.
The best henge.
The best henge.
Ooh.
It's much better than Woodhenge.
Screw you, Woodhenge.
Not quite as good as Bronzehenge.
I'm actually quite excited for this one. Like, it's always been something that I've wanted to look into. And, well, I'm sure we'll discuss it, but if there's anything specific about the stones and the way they're organised and stuff like that, it'll be interesting to see if there's any theories people have got. Obviously, that's what we're here to do. But, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm quite
There's
excited.
a ton of theories about it, so there'll be a lot to discuss. But I suggest, before we begin, that if you haven't watched this, then watch the video Stonehenge by Ylvis. Ylvis. That band who did What Does the Fox Say?
What does the fox say?
I'm not going to say that it was the inspiration for this episode.
But it was the inspiration for this video.
It definitely was. It's really funny, actually.
I'm watching that after
The
this.
main way that we get our
But you
ideas.
haven't watched it yet, Sean. I sent you the link. It was homework.
When?
He
a
sent
couple
it,
days ago.
He sent it a few days
Oh.
ago. I watched like the first 15
missed it, I
seconds of
missed
it
it.
in work, and I was like, wait, what the? I can't really watch this in work, and turned it off.
Okay, maybe I missed that one. My
You both
bad.
had one job. Well, you had two jobs. One was to do the homework, and the other was to turn up on time.
Yeah.
We didn't even do that.
You failed both of them, actually. Sean was late. Anyway, so from the video, you probably figured out that we're going to ask some important questions. Namely, what's the meaning of Stonehenge? And also, who the fuck built a Stonehenge? So have either of you two been to Stonehenge?
No, I would actually like to go. I don't actually know exactly where it is, you know.
I've been. Well, when I say I've been, I've not actually been directly to it, but there's a motorway or an A road, I can't remember what it is, that goes directly past Stonehenge, and there's like a bit that you can stop at the side of the road, and you can see Stonehenge from about 50 metres. But it's up a big hill, and we couldn't bother climbing up the hill, so we just drove off.
Yeah. So what do you know about it? Anyone who wants to start?
Not a lot, is what I'm going to say. I want to say something druids.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all I know. I wouldn't even say I know that.
Any idea, Sean?
I mean, to me, it's just Stone Age people putting rocks in a pattern.
Pretty
But
much, yeah.
That's the main presumption. For me, at least, without looking too much into it. That's what I've always kind of thought, because I know there's a lot of mystery around it and stuff like that, and I know there are people who theorize, and there's probably a lot of historians that are crazy about it. I'm sure we'll look into, but it's like I was saying, why I'm excited for it, because it's, I don't know, you just see pictures of it, and it's just a couple of rocks, really. But there's more to it than that, because obviously they've dated it way back, I'm presuming.
Yep, they have guessed how old it is. It's kind of, it falls in with the stuff with the pyramid and with Atlantis that we've done, where it's kind of like ancient technology theories kind of stuff. Because there's loads of questions about how they managed to build it without any decent technology.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole main mystery about it.
A few years ago, there was a lot of talk about how they actually got the stones there, wasn't there? I remember that. They were saying about it coming, well, I don't know. I remember them talking about them coming from the sea, or maybe not from the sea. I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get to it later on. But so Stonehenge is probably the world's most well-known prehistoric monument. It was constructed over several different phases, spanning at least 1,500 years, according to archaeologists.
Wow.
But the earliest phase has been dated to 3,100 BC. So that's the initial forming of it. It's really old. It's older than I thought it was going to be when I first started looking into it. For the location, it's in the county of Wiltshire in England, and is located 2 miles west of Amesbury, in an area known as the Salisbury Plain.
Don't know what that is.
It's kind of sort of southwest from London, if you know where London is.
Oh, really? Okay.
So first I'll sort of describe the layout of it,
Okay.
And to understand the layout, it's probably easier to look at the top-down picture. So I've linked one in the description for this episode, which YouTube are probably looking at right now.
I've got it up right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be initially, because I read a whole massive archaeological paper on Stonehenge to try and wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
So it consists of a number of standing stones arranged in concentric horseshoe-like patterns. Surrounding the entire site is an almost circular 110-metre wide bank and ditch, and it's from this structure that the henge part of Stonehenge comes from. So a henge is a Stone Age earthwork described as a circular banked enclosure with an internal ditch. Stonehenge, however, shows the opposite, i.e. it has an external ditch with internal bank, and so it's technically not a henge.
We've been lied to.
We've been lied to. Archaeologists have failed already in their description of Stonehenge.
It's a great start to the episode.
The stone part's right, I guess.
True.
There are definitely stones, I'm pretty sure. So the enclosure is open in various places to create entrances to the site, but the main access is in the northeast and is called the Avenue. This area is marked by a large sandstone boulder known as the Heel Stone. Just in from the bank is a circle of 56 pits, known as the Aubrey Holes. These holes may have originally contained wooden posts, however there's no physical evidence of this. This is just sort of what archaeologists guessed was in
them.
And
they look like properly regimented, spaced out holes, don't they? So you can kind of imagine if there was almost like a fence around it.
Yeah, the whole thing's sort of like regimented, like well measured out. It's really strange how
it's weird. How have they managed to work out that these holes are there? Because surely they would have filled in over time.
I think you can tell there is discoloration in the ground from where they were originally. And also there's things inside them that have been buried, which we'll get to.
Okay.
Within this circle, there are 4 station stones, which mark the corners of a rectangle. 2 of them are currently in position, but it's believed that another 2 are present atop the north and south barrows. In the centre of the site are 2 concentric arrays of holes, known as the Q&R holes, and it's these holes which house the standing stones. The Q&R holes currently create concentric crescents, but it can be assumed that they originally formed a double ring. If this is the case, then it's likely that there would have been 40 pairs of holes.
Okay.
There are 2 types of stones present in the centre structure. The largest are sarsen stones. These are a type of sandstone, and they weighed up to 25 tons.
Wow.
The sarsens are commonly capped by horizontal lintels to create the iconic N shape associated with Stonehenge. These structures of 2 vertical stones capped by a horizontal stone are known as trilithons, which is a cool word. I like that word.
It is a cool word.
Trilithons. The sarsens show an inner horseshoe of 5 trilithons, around which are the remains of the outer sarsen circle. The smaller stones are known as bluestones, and these are up to 4 tons. Most of these are a type of dolerite, which is an intrusive igneous rock, meaning that they formed from magma which never erupted at the surface. The bluestones make up the remains of a circle between the 2 sarsen structures. So they're like between the horseshoes in a circle. In the centre of the sarsen horseshoe is the altar stone, a large sandstone which lies prone. The final stone of note is the slaughter stone. This is located at the inner entrance of the avenue. A sarsen which originally stood upright, it gets its name from the red liquid which collects in its upper hollows. This phenomenon originally led people to believe that the stone was seeping blood from past human sacrifices, but the red colour is actually a result of rainwater reacting with the iron in the stone.
That's cool.
Yeah. But you can see how prehistoric
they would have been
people
confused,
would think,
But also the red of the blood surely would have worn away, but if there was iron in the blood, that would have reacted with the rainwater, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because obviously we're saying that they were thinking that it was for slaughter, right? So that's the presumption, but then you're saying it's later found that it's the rainwater that's reacted with the iron to make the red, because it does do that. I've seen it. Iron oxide is red, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's rust.
So, but what if it is because of the iron that was previously in blood that was deposited when it's dried up?
Well, I don't think there'd still be blood present on the stone.
Exactly. But obviously the iron would still be there.
I'm not sure that's how it works.
If you have like a pool of water and it evaporates, any salt or any foreign body or whatever that was in the water would be left wherever the puddle was.
Yeah, that you are right, but I think it would take a long time for blood to
have enough iron.
To have an effect on the actual rock around it, because you'd basically have to have all the blood cells dry up, all the iron then come out of it, and it not be washed away over time that it got absorbed into the rock without being washed away by the rain, for example. So I get what you mean, but I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. They actually sacrifice humans on it, and it's actually blood that seeps from it, or animals.
Or animals, yeah.
Yeah, they're just as worthy of sacrifice as humans. Easier to get hold of, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first mystery we have to discuss is where did all these rocks come from?
Well,
any ideas? Can I guess?
So what will the...
Yeah, just remind us the rock type so that we can try and make a guess.
Okay, so the big ones are sarsens, and these are a sandstone.
Okay.
And the smaller ones are bluestones. And
so sandstone is going to be anywhere where there's water, right? Because it's a sedimentary rock.
Well, anywhere where there was water, not currently.
Well, yeah, okay.
So, big rivers nearby. I guess maybe the River Avon going Bristol way. It's not that far away. Maybe there could have been sandstone dragged from there. I don't know. It seems a long way. And these things are huge. You said 25 stone.
25 tons.
25 tons, sorry. No, 25 stone is not that heavy. 25 tons, sorry.
Mm-hmm. For the big ones. The small ones are 4 tons. That's still pretty heavy.
That is ridiculous. How on earth have they managed to get...
Exactly, that's where
Please
the
refer
mystery comes
to episode 4, where we discuss how they built the...
the pyramid. Not sure. So maybe Dorset.
We're going to go with Dorset, okay.
Yeah, sandstone comes from Dorset, right? Does it?
No, it's chalk.
No, okay, never mind.
It's pretty much all chalk, that bottom bit of England, to be fair. That's why it's a massive aquifer. It's where they get all the water from, for London.
Did they buy it from France?
What, the water or the chalk?
No, the sandstone.
The sandstone.
And then the other rock was igneous.
Dolomite. Yes, it's igneous.
Are there any volcanoes nearby?
Not currently, but there would have been in the past.
So you said 3000 BC, roughly?
Yeah, well, the rocks were around at 3000 BC, which means they would have formed millions of years before that. See, the problem that's happened here, I should have asked this, but the problem that's happened here is you're assuming that they formed in the environment that was around in 3000 BC. When they didn't. They formed in probably prehistoric times, like maybe dinosaur times.
So the dinosaurs built Stonehenge?
Yes, we'll go with that.
Oh my god, the thought of a T-Rex trying to pick up that with its tiny little arms. Trying to pick up a giant 25-ton rock and drag it along with its tiny arms.
I think if the theory was that T-Rex built Stonehenge, people wouldn't believe it any more than humans building it, because I think T-Rexes are worse at building Stonehenge than people.
You don't know that.
I mean, their arms are tiny.
You don't know that.
Okay, sure.
If you could back it up, I will accept that argument.
Yeah, where's your evidence?
I've been found out. It's all a sham.
I'm going to need a reference. He's not done.
Okay, take your time. Don't worry.
I've got to compose myself. It's like Jason all over again.
Jason!
Oh no, don't start me on that. Please don't start me on that.
Don't start. No.
Now there's a debate whether I keep the laughing in the recording.
We keep the laughing in. Right, let's carry on.
So the traditional view is that Stonehenge was constructed by everyone's favourite scumbag wizard, Merlin.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. He was a bit of a scumbag, if you're not aware.
I didn't know that.
Well, in the traditional French stories, he was very into small girls.
Oh.
Yeah. He basically spent his time advising King Arthur and then going away for months trying to kidnap small girls.
He's a nonce, get him.
Anyway, we've discredited Merlin enough, I think.
Yeah.
So this is from a 12th century story by Geoffrey of Monmouth, who wrote that the rocks of Stonehenge were brought from Africa to Ireland by giants for their healing properties. The story goes that the king wanted to erect a memorial to the nobles slain in battle, and from Merlin's advice decided to basically steal Stonehenge from the Irish. The knights failed at moving the rocks with ropes and force, but Merlin easily dismantled the stones using, quote, gear and skill, and sent them to Britain.
Wait, right, so just so we're clear, are we implying that Merlin and the Arthurian thing was real?
Yes.
Was it?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
I just want to clarify that. I know, right? I thought Sherlock Holmes was real for years, like until obviously I hit like.
So you found out it was a book story.
Yeah, I'm not talking like last year. You know,
Yeah, whatever.
Once I hit high school, I was like, oh, okay, because no one had ever explained it to me. So King Arthur, I thought King Arthur was like a myth.
I think there's slight evidence that King Arthur was a real person, but he was around a lot before the stories say he was.
Yeah, but also obviously the Merlin thing and the Sword and the Stone thing, it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
But you could argue that Merlin could have been perceived as a wizard because he had, what's the word? He had things that he had knowledge and stuff. Fuck's sake. No, he had things and stuff at the time that was maybe a bit more advanced. So he had knowledge of. Fuck off. Right. So basically, I'm saying that he would have been seen as magical or outlandish if he had knowledge of.
Yeah, maybe
that was not from the time.
Yeah, the important bit about that story is the quote gear and skill, which sort of implies that they originally built it using gears and skill.
Okay.
Which is quite likely, and that's what archaeologists point to, that they actually had the knowledge to build this monument. In reality, the Sartans were most likely derived locally. However, the bluestones don't match the surrounding geology. So within all the sort of the chalk bedrock of Wiltshire, there's all these Sarsen sandstone layers. I'm not sure exactly the geology behind why they're formed, but they're present. And we know they're present because there's evidence around the area still of these sandstone layers.
Yeah.
And there's also accounts from medieval times of farmers like moaning that they had to like remove sandstone boulders from their fields and stuff like that when they were digging up farmland.
Okay.
But there's still a debate about how they move them because they're like 25 tons. So even if they are locally, they might be 20 miles away, which is local in terms of geology, but not local in terms of building a monument.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that it would have been agricultural methods as well, perhaps, to move something that much.
Yeah, maybe you could use animals to drag them. Remember, this is something I didn't realise when I was doing the research, but they hadn't invented the wheel at this point.
Crikey.
Oh, okay.
Which is it blows your mind a bit, doesn't it?
Well, there was no actual proof that they'd invented the wheel, right?
Yeah. But I think we got records from when they invented the wheel.
Oh, okay.
Historically, citation needed, but I'm pretty sure it was much later that they...
Yeah, the source you've looked at says that it was before the predicted date of... Yeah, okay. Well, that's fine. I don't feel like that's a question we have to linger on for too long.
Yeah.
I've already lingered on it for too long.
Mm-hmm.
So we should probably stop talking about
it. Okay, but the real mystery is where the bluestones came from, because they don't match the surrounding geology, as I said before. In fact, they most closely resemble the geology of the Preseli Hills in Pembrokeshire, Wales, which is over 100 miles away.
So, sorry, just as a side note, you said before, we're talking about the geology as of now. Going back many, many years, we're still saying it didn't match the local geology.
Yeah, well, geology wouldn't have changed very much in 3,000 years.
Okay, fine.
It's a very short time period in geological terms.
Okay.
So we can basically assume the world looked pretty much the same as it does now.
Yes, sure.
Okay. So there are two main theories on how the bluestones ended up at Stonehenge. The first is that they are erratics left over by past glacial movement, and second is that they were moved by people. So the glacial erratics one is the one that geologists usually point to, and the movement by people is the one that archaeologists usually put forwards. Mostly just because they both have expertise in that particular area, right?
Sure. So just explain briefly, what do you mean by it being glacial?
So when the glacier moves, it moves rocks with it.
Okay.
It basically moves anything that's on it. And usually that's rocks, because there'll be rock slides onto the glacier.
And it wears away whatever's underneath it, I would have thought as well.
Yeah. It carries rocks at the bottom of it as well as it erodes the floor of the valley.
Okay.
And after a glacier melts, it'll drop all of its load, basically where it melted. And these are called glacial erratics. So like when you see an open field and then you'll see a massive boulder in the middle of it, and you've got no idea how it's got there. It's probably been dropped by a glacier thousands of years
Sure.
ago.
Yes. Okay.
And they're called erratics because it's basically means they don't belong there.
Yeah.
I think that's what the word means.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Chaotic distribution.
Yeah. So the glacial erratics theory is often put forward when applying Occam's razor, i.e. the simplest explanation is often the correct one.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's simpler to assume that they were moved naturally by glaciers than by Stone Age people in a time before the wheel was invented.
But then they were arranged.
Yeah, they would have had to be moved at some distance by people.
I know you're not implying that they just fell in that way.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Well, law of averages. Yeah, it could be a thing.
I'd have to knight that glacier if it dropped the stones in the perfect Stonehenge double horseshoe. Incredible. And then also built 56 Aubrey holes around it, and also a bank and ditch structure.
At least it knew it wasn't building a henge, though.
Yeah. You're not going to let that drop, are you?
Nope.
Take that, archaeologists. So in favour of the glacier theory, we do know that the Irish Sea Glacier covered parts of the UK 500,000 years ago. But whether it reached all the way to Wiltshire, we're not certain.
That thing's huge, Tim.
Yeah, glaciers are really big.
Yeah, I didn't think they were that big. Jesus.
Especially in the Ice Age. During this time, pretty much all of the north of Europe was a glacier.
Jeez.
Or like many glaciers joined together.
Hmm.
And also in favour of it, Stonehenge sort of looks unfinished, likely because the glacier didn't drop enough blue stones nearby for people to complete it.
Yeah, that would kind of make sense when you look at the diagram.
To dispute the glacier theory, however, there isn't evidence of glacial deposits with large chunks of bluestone anywhere near Stonehenge, and it's unlikely that the Neolithic communities would have entirely removed all glacial deposits in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the statement which really sort of destroys the glacial erratic theory for me.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't see similar deposits anywhere nearby.
The crux of it is that they would have had to have used every single stone in order for that theory to have worked, because there's no aftermath evidence.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the stones were taken elsewhere.
Yeah, but every single one?
If they were, I know. That's fair. But they thought they had a special property?
Yeah. But that's the theory about Stonehenge as well.
Ah, okay.
That's why they think these stones are so important.
I'm glad I thought of that myself.
Properties. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was doing the research, I read like somewhere that there are like one or two like odd bluestones that they found, but that's definitely not a big sample size. And again, they could have just been moved by a person and then just like they gave up and left it there. So in favour of the human movement theory put forth by archaeologists, other stone monuments in the Neolithic UK also include rocks from afar, and also studies have shown that there is evidence of Neolithic quarrying in the Preseli Hills. So there's a quite famous paper from not too long ago where they actually discovered Neolithic quarrying sites in the Preseli Hills, and they assumed that this is the exact spot from where the bluestones were taken.
Sorry, what exactly does Neolithic mean?
Neolithic means Stone Age.
Stone Age, okay.
It's just a period of time.
Okay.
Those Preseli Hills are the ones in Pembrokeshire, aren't they?
Yes, yeah.
But still, it's still so far, though.
It is, it's really far. It's over 100 miles away.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know.
Even before the M4 was built.
Yeah. I mean, the M4 wouldn't be very useful if you didn't have wheels.
True.
No, that's a fair point. That is true.
So the main theory is that they could have been taken south from the Preseli Hills, placed on rafts, and then paddled up the Bristol Channel, and then along various waterways to the Salisbury Plain. But it's a lot of effort, isn't it?
Well, how big a raft would you have to support the weight of 25 tons?
These are the 4-ton stones. These are the small ones.
The 4-ton ones. Fine. Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
And you wouldn't do it all in one go as well.
No, but I'm just thinking like the rocks are in one piece. It's not like they're fragmented, right? They've not been put together. They're all one solid piece of rock.
Yeah.
So possibly they actually weighed more than 4 tons to start with.
Yeah, they would have, I presume, yeah.
And they've had erosion over time. So these are big pieces of rock to put on a raft, and even if a raft was big, it's still got to be buoyant enough to take the weight of 4 tons.
Alternatively, they could have just been dragged overland by lots of people with ropes, which I think it's a shorter distance, but it's way more effort and pulling it on a raft.
That's I don't know.
It's a mystery, isn't it?
Well, is it? Is that why we're talking about it? Maybe?
It kind of goes back to the whole pyramids thing, which is if you try and turn it into manpower, how many slaves would it have taken to pull something that big?
Slaves, Stuart.
Yeah, they could have been paying these people.
They could have been.
They might not have been paying these people. These people might have just wanted to do it. You don't know.
Maybe.
It could have been the Stone Age Olympics.
Stonehenge.
Or something else.
That would be such a good excuse to get something like that done.
They went to Athens. They were like, "Wait, it hasn't even been built yet. Let's do the Olympics."
How do we know what Athens is?
Because I realised halfway through my joke that Athens wouldn't have even been built yet.
It makes the joke funnier, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So in a 2016 experiment, it was found that just 10 people were needed to haul a thread and giant block over a short trackway at about 1 mile per hour. So it's possible to drag large stones.
10 people?
10 people. I'm not sure how big the block was, but it says giant block, so I'm assuming quite big.
I'm assuming giant.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming because it was an experiment specifically based on Stonehenge that they picked maybe a 4-ton block.
Yeah.
But
1 mile per hour is really slow.
Very slow.
Yeah.
But then again, I guess turn it into agriculture. Get a horse or a cow, I guess, maybe, or a goat to pull it along.
That could pull a 5-ton piece of rock. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. A woolly mammoth.
Yeah, so it's possible that they could have done it, we've shown, but they didn't move it very far. They gave up very quickly because they were knackered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said, did you say that it was likely that it was built over 1,500 years?
Yeah, very long time.
I don't know. Even then, I find it really hard to believe.
It was built in separate stages. So I think originally they built just the henge, the bank and ditch.
Yeah.
But
even then, no, it doesn't make sense to me that they would have built it over such a long period of time.
To put it in some context for what Alex just said, if you go onto the second page of the document that's linked down below, so you can see that the bank was built first with the Aubrey poles put around it, and it took them 500 years for the stones to arrive. So at 1 mile per hour.
So think about it, 500 years, right? Someone's planning this for 500 years. People don't live that long.
Well, no, not necessarily. It might have been a whole community.
When I say someone, I mean it could be a couple of 100,000 people.
Yeah, a collective is planning this.
Yeah, a collective is planning this, and it could be passed down generations. And presuming how big these stones are, there's no way in hell that a couple of people could have made this. They would have had massive amounts of people helping with this. But does that make sense that it's not lining up in my head? The same with the way that it's not right about the pyramids. You could argue with the pyramids because they would have had the Egyptian leaders. If you take all the supernatural, all the crazy alien theories out of it, it's possible that they could have done it over 20,000 years or however. Please refer to episode 4 because I can't remember my own facts. But you know what I mean? They had 20,000 people working daily for a couple of 100 years, 1,000 years or whatever. That's with their technology that they potentially had and with an actual driving force, that was the emperor or who they believe to be gods and stuff like that, actually pushing these people along. Would the people who made this or the people who arranged it actually have that same kind of drive?
Well, I guess we haven't really got onto that in terms. We've talked about where the stones come from, but I guess are we going to come on to who built Stonehenge? Who done it? Yeah.
Not specifically who, because I assume it was the local community built it over a long period of time as a project. So what I've got in my notes about this is that movement of the blue stones may have taken hundreds of years and was possibly carried out by many different generations. They appear to have had some significance, so maybe they are part of other monuments along the way before they eventually found themselves as part of Stonehenge. Mm-hmm. So my assumption is that they make the henge first, and they make a wooden structure in the centre of it, and then they very slowly replace the wooden part of it with stones over a very long period of time. That's what I assume sort of happened.
Yeah.
And that would make sense. They could take these stones. The Welsh people might have taken the stones from the quarry and then made a monument somewhere else and then they might have gradually been taken away by other people to make Stonehenge eventually. Because it seems like the blue stones were important in some way. We're not sure exactly why they're important, but they might have had some religious significance to the people.
Yeah, it also might explain the duration of time that it took to move the stones, because actually it could have only taken a few years to move the stone, but we're saying it's been 500 years because for 497 years it was part of a different monument.
Yeah, they could have been part of like 5 or 6 different monuments over their lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a side note, I'm going to kind of counteract what I said before. In terms of how could people, have planned this over such a long time. There's actually, and I was thinking to modern times now, because I'm thinking realistically, people don't do that sort of stuff because we can make stuff so quick. And I think the idea of building something over such a long period, I'm not talking like building a city, I'm talking about something that's built over like 1,000 years, like Stonehenge seems to be built. There is actually a place in Germany, I think, and it's a church that is constantly playing a song, and it's playing the world's slowest song.
Yes, I've heard of this.
And like, it's not beats per minute; it's beats per like year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure this year is actually when a note changes.
Gosh.
And like, because it's written on a piece of paper, right? But like the way they have to play it and the way that it's crazy. It really is, and it's been going on for 50 years, but it wouldn't finish for another couple of thousand or something. I'm not going to look it up, but I can't remember which. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's a monastery. I think it's just a chapel or a church or something.
It's called the Bacardi Church in Halberstadt.
Halberstadt, that's the one. Yeah. So thank you for looking that up. But I just found that really interesting, and I was just thinking, like, that is actually such a long project that hopefully does carry on, and people don't kind of forget about it. But I feel like we've hit a point in time or history where everything's recorded so much easier. Oh, this is a bit more profound than I'm used to being.
Oh, wow.
I feel like we're at the point where it'll be very hard or impossible to forget anything.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
There wouldn't be any crazy monasteries that people still don't know about. Or when it comes to like Stonehenge, that's different because I feel like that'll always be an ongoing mystery unless
we solve it today.
Happen. Unless we solve it today. But you know what I mean? So, okay, that's just a bit of philosophy that...
Bit of rambling.
I don't know where that came from, but...
We like a ramble.
Yeah,
we
that's
do.
what the show's about, right? So, yeah,
Sure.
Not directly related, but...
Close enough.
Yeah. Why are we here?
To record this podcast, clearly.
Okay, fair enough. Can't argue with that.
Okay, so we haven't really come to a consensus about where the stones come from, but no one really has, so I guess that's good.
Okay. I'm going to claim it. I'm going to make
theories,
consensus. Though. I reckon it was goats or a T-Rex.
Goats. I think goats are worse than T-Rex at building Stonehenge.
A giant ice squid from the Ice Age.
Yep, it's definitely the squid.
Squids are very good at building Stonehenge.
That swim through the land like a sand shark.
They've got very many arms.
Hang on, well, one thing you do, that is a good point. Maybe it wasn't, the stones weren't, maybe the stones weren't put on a raft. Maybe they were put on the back of a squid, and the squid swam them up the River Avon to the mouth of the Bristol Channel.
I think they just stuck them to all the suckers, all the tentacles.
Yeah, but then you got to pull the squid along.
No, the squid can swim.
Yeah, but how does it get on land?
With its massive tentacles. How is this a question?
Anyway.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about how it was made. That famous TV show.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I love that program.
It's really interesting, isn't it? You think it would be boring, but it drags you in.
Mm-hmm.
Even the simple things that you think, oh, that's not that difficult to build. And then they build it and you're like, wait, what?
Like, wow, it takes 10 machines to make a paperclip?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, so Stonehenge would have been extremely difficult to build using Neolithic techniques and would have required a huge number of people. The large quantities of sarsen and bluestone waste material, as well as broken hammerstones that have been found in the area around Stonehenge, suggest that the stones were worked into shape by hand. So this is an amazing amount of manpower to... Because they're basically like rectangular stones now, right? And we can assume that they weren't that shape originally.
Yeah.
There is sort of like a geological thing where there's sort of like vertical cracks that they break along, and they kind of would have made them into rectangle shapes. which would have lowered the amount of work required to shape them, but still, it's a lot of work. So you've got a stone that's lying there, but in order to erect it, you would have had to make a sort of like a rope structure. So you'd dig a large hole with a sloping side in it. You'd then move the stone into the hole and then haul it upright using ropes and a wooden A-frame, supposedly.
And they had that technology then, we're assuming.
According to archaeologists,
Okay.
this is the most likely way they could have done it. The lintels, on the other hand, are a lot more complicated to have been placed there. These are the horizontal ones on top.
Yeah, they make the N shape, isn't it?
To make the trilithons.
Yeah.
So, according to archaeologists, they would have been raised up incrementally on timber platforms before being slid into place along ramps.
Essentially, you're building scaffolding.
Yeah, essentially you're making scaffolding at different heights over a long period of time to slowly raise them up. But still, it's a lot of work, isn't it?
Just a bit.
The cool thing, though, is how they fitted them together. So they used mortise holes and protruding tendons on the sarcens. So imagine the clicky bits on Lego bricks. So you have the hole and the bit that clicks into the hole. So they basically made giant Lego bricks using these stones. On the sides of the lintels, they used tongue and groove joints to fit them together. And this is a common technique used in woodworking. So it's a similar thing to the Lego, where you have a bit sticking out and then a hole, and then you slide it in from the top downwards. Yeah. But I think that's really cool. How they
is really
giant
cool.
Lego bricks. And you can actually see this is a way they did it, because some of the stones have broken and fallen to the floor and stuff like that. So how true do you reckon this is? Do you reckon they could have done this?
So I think they could have stood them upright, but getting the bits to go horizontally on top of it, they don't look as big, so I'm guessing maybe they weren't as heavy, actually. But
maybe, but they're still sarsen
still
stones,
really it was going to weigh so much to lift that up, because these things are tall, aren't they? These bits of rock are a fair distance off the ground.
Yeah.
I just wonder how they would actually build that scaffolding, because when it's raised, you're going to have to get people physically lifting it up to put scaffolding in underneath it to make it progressively higher.
I don't know. I completely forgot about that they have the horizontal bits, because it just makes everything even more crazy. The logistics of trying to get these rocks there in the first place, and then trying to lift these things onto the other rocks. It's just no. It's insane. Obviously, they're smaller rocks than the ones they're on, right? But even then.
And remember, what we're assuming in theory is that there were two circles of these stones, right? And every single one of them had a lintel over them. So I don't know how many of these lintels there would have been, maybe 20 or 30, something like that. But still, it's really hard to imagine that they could have made it using Stone Age technology. Archaeologists definitely seem to assume that they could have, though, which kind of leads more credence to it, I guess. Yeah,
I can't really come up with an argument to say that they wouldn't be able to do it, because none of it is beyond the realms of possibility that they could make an A-frame or some scaffolding. It might have been really advanced then, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that you might be able to make some scaffolding, because they built other structures, didn't they? They would have built housing and things like that. They might have relied on similar principles of design anyway.
Yeah, I think if you have enough people, it's definitely possible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To haul a massive rock upright. So, do you want to move on to what it was used for? Or what we assume it was used for, maybe?
Yeah, this will be the bit that it'll be interesting, because I don't know anything about this bit at all.
Okay, so we'll start with the most likely ones, I guess. So these are aliens, right? The most likely ones. It's a cornerstone of the podcast to start with aliens. So the building of Stonehenge is far too advanced for the Neolithic population of Britain, and so must have been influenced by extraterrestrials. In his book Chariots of the Gods, the author Eric von Daniken claims that the technologies and religions of many ancient civilizations were given to them by extraterrestrials. This is possibly an attempt by aliens to influence our society for whatever reason. So that fits with pyramids as well, I guess, and Atlantis, in the fact that it must have been made by aliens because people were too stupid to do it themselves.
Yep.
But this Eric von Daniken guy is a massive conspiracy nut.
Yeah,
especially around aliens.
this isn't the first time we've mentioned him.
No, I don't think it is. How about UFOs? So maybe Stonehenge was a UFO landing site. It definitely stand.
No.
No. Okay.
Oh, go on.
Dismissed.
I'll let you finish. Go on.
All right. Let me finish. These are the reasons, right? They're perfect reasons. They'll definitely explain why it's a UFO landing site. So Stonehenge definitely stands out on the Salisbury Plain and is circular, just like UFOs. Think about it.
What the fuck? No. Okay. Wait, looking at this PDF, the link that's in the description. So on the second page, it's got like the phases of Stonehenge.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe it was at the start with all like the Aubrey holes around it, just being, I don't know, if they were potentially filled with. You said they were filled with
something,
stones or posts or whatever. Maybe some kind of civilization, like human civilization, started to just build around it. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying that the stones have nothing to do with it, basically.
Maybe
it's just
they were
the
filled
area
with posts that the UFO would then land on, and it would be like in the air, so they could like easily things into it.
Like a garage for UFOs.
Yeah, a UFO garage in the middle of a field in Stone Age Britain. It's perfect.
Well, I'm glad we solved that one. Next podcast.
No, I don't know. But it still doesn't solve the problem of all the stones, so my theory doesn't really.
I love that the only explanations I could find for the UFO theory is that it stands out and it's circular. Just so much information on it.
Where's your tinfoil hat?
Oh, trust me, I'm wearing it right now over my headphones.
Good.
I've crafted it perfectly to fit around my headphones. Right, so we'll move on to the sort of like archaeological sort of uses. These are more likely. I'm not sure how they could be more likely than alien society influence, but we'll give it a shot.
Yep.
So a large number of cremated human remains have been unearthed at Stonehenge, suggesting that it was an ancient burial ground. So this is what was in the Aubrey holes. They found loads of cremated human remains.
Ooh.
And also in some of the other holes, like the Q&R holes, stuff like that. It's also a commonly held belief that amongst prehistoric people, stone was associated with the ancestral dead. So that's sort of like a religious thing, that they marked burial sites with stones, I guess. I think it's also present in a lot of other Stone Age monuments. So what do you reckon about that?
Well, I mean, it's pretty weird. Well, not weird, but it's kind of creepy that there's so many cremated bodies inside the hole. But if you make the assumption that it's taken a long time to build this structure, somebody to carry it out using religion as a method, and there being religious instructions passed down through generations to build this monument so that it became a mass burial site or like a holy burial site, kind of ties in a lot of different things that we've talked about.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
What I was going to say is, why would people make this for it to be a holy burial site? But people or something made the pyramids. I know I keep going back to that, but it's very, very similar in terms of the theories you could apply to it, right? So the reason they built the pyramids was because it was for emperors. That's the historically accepted theory. So it wouldn't be unheard of that they would have put so much effort into something they also had a lot of passion, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
the idea behind it being of religious permutation, that seems to be fairly reasonable. Depending on, well, what religion would they have been potentially back then? So it's pre-Christian.
I want to say pagan, but I think it may be way before pagan. So you mentioned Druids before.
Yeah.
That's a misconception about Stonehenge. Because currently, the crazy people that think that they're Druids use Stonehenge for their like crazy dance ceremonies or whatever they do. You know, the Druid stuff.
Yeah. They use it for the solstice and stuff, don't they, I think?
Yeah. But Stonehenge was built long before Druids were a thing, from what I believe. And it's sort of a misconception because of modern Druids.
Okay.
So if you say there's a religious used to it. We're not sure what religion they were doing back then. Maybe it was some sort of like really primitive religion, like a sun god or whatever. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah.
So the next theory. This is one that Sean mentioned before, and this is like the healing sort of thing. So maybe Stonehenge was a site of healing because many of the skeletons buried in the henge show signs of illness or injury. Maybe they were like pilgrims who would venture from afar to the monument in an attempt to utilise the stone's healing properties.
Okay.
This theory is supported by the fact that many of the blue stones have been chipped away, perhaps to be taken away from the site and used as healing talismans.
Mm.
So maybe they thought this is why the blue stones have been moved from so far away, because they think they've got these magical healing properties, and they've made this special monument to maybe like amplify the healing effect from the stones.
Yeah.
And then people would obviously go there. Some people would magically get healed, and they'd think it was true, even though like they just got better because of reasons. And some people would like get there and die and then be cremated.
Right?
Yeah, placebo effect. It would reinforce the religious aspect, right?
Thing is, I think it's fairly reasonable to say that is a good possibility. People go to, oh bloody hell, what's that place in France called?
Oh, the healing...
Lord? Something like that?
Yeah, it's like
where
the
there's
healing place, right?
There's a statue of Mary, I think, isn't it? Or something like that. You'd have to check. We'd have to check that. But there's a statue in Lourdes in France, which is considered to be like a holy healing monument that Catholics go on a pilgrimage to every year. People go there, and lots of people who are sick go there and die because they've used all their energy thinking that they're going to get there and then be healed. But unfortunately, nature takes its toll.
It's like the French dignitas.
Kind of. Yeah, except... yeah, sure. But
yeah, sure. So you go sit back down.
Yeah. But you could kind of argue, well, if this is like an early place that the religion of that time or the people of that time thought, oh, this could be a place of great healing, there will be lots of people going there, and there will be a correlating number of people who die there.
Yeah.
And that might explain more of the mass grave. Yeah, and it explains the kind of almost like inverted commas mass grave kind of theory by the bodies of people who maybe had horrible infections were burnt. Like, I know this is obviously long before things like the plague and stuff, but nature has a way of killing lots of people off every now and again, like the Spanish flu and then the plague. And so like it's not unheard of to think of that maybe people thought that this was a last resort, and it was not built for that reason, but it ended up becoming a symbol of that sort of theory.
Yeah, so the thing you mentioned is holy water from a spring in the sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes in France. So it's like a holy water site, I guess.
And this is actually a thing that people still frequent today.
Yeah.
I honestly never knew that. I presumed there was something like that because I've heard stories and stuff, but I never thought that it was actually a real thing that people still do. I mean, I don't know why I thought that actually, because you get stuff like in Japan where, well, in general, just pilgrimages.
Well, yeah, it's like for people of Islamic faith, they do the Hajj, don't they?
Yeah, so Mecca, yeah.
So it's effectively the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So do you reckon that's quite likely, the healing sort of stuff? I think it is.
Yeah. I think it's a good explanation. Again, it ties lots of the little bits and pieces about it together. It still doesn't directly address how the stones got there in the first place.
No, that's a whole different thing.
But it does make sense that it's for healing. It does have a heel stone.
Yeah, it's spelled differently.
H-E-E-L. It's like the heel of your foot.
I know, that was the joke.
Oh, okay. Do you want to make the joke again so I don't ruin it?
No, don't give him the opportunity. Move on with the podcast.
Pun.
Okay, so an interesting thing about the remains found at Stonehenge is that an equal proportion of men, women and children are present, suggesting that there was sort of a level of unification within the society.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there doesn't seem to be like the men are better than women sort of thing that you see in history, generally. So experts have suggested that Stonehenge may have been a symbol of this unification, with the 5 trilithons in the centre of the monument representing 5 different tribal lineages. So if you think about, they could have made like a monument of unification to like celebrate the society, and I guess there would have been like an equal rights sort of thing with men, women, and children.
Okay.
So it could be like a symbolic thing. And it also would have been like a kind of a team building sort of thing where they all could have built it together to like solidify the bond between the different tribes, maybe. But there isn't like much evidence for that besides the gender shown with the remains. And again, that could have just been that people are equally ill no matter what the gender is, and it was like a healing thing.
Yeah.
But whatever.
That's quite interesting, yeah, to suggest like some kind of, not prehistoric, but Neolithic, like equality. That's quite nice.
So there's sort of like archaeological theories about it, but there's some sort of like scientific ones, which I'll cover now. So a fairly recent theory states that Stonehenge was constructed because of its acoustic properties. Experiments have shown that in particular, the blue stones have incredible sonic properties and almost ring like a bell when hit.
Nah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which I don't really believe. I'd have to like see it myself.
Yeah.
It's
So what were they made
bold
of?
statement. They're made of rock, made of dolerite.
Dolerite, okay, that's what I was looking for. So, okay.
Don't ask me about the acoustic properties of dolerite because I don't know.
You're meant to be a geologist.
We don't
You
like
research,
hit them.
damn it.
We don't like make xylophones from rocks.
Yeah, you do. Every time you see a rock, you're like, ooh, what does this do? And you bang them together, and that's how you do
To be
science.
fair, we do taste them a lot.
Oh, really?
Okay.
That's slightly more weird than I was expecting.
You'd be surprised what information you can get from licking a rock.
Well, yeah, if it's salt, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense because
Yep.
I don't know.
It's
would
not
it,
advised, though.
would
Don't
it
go out
taste
licking
smoky
rocks.
if it was igneous? Does that make sense?
Tastes like volcano.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure, we'll go with that.
Barbecued.
tastes like dolerite.
Why did you go Palpatine when you're like
I don't know.
Something dollar.
Dark side. something. Yeah, go on.
Okay, so
Let's carry on.
due to the way the stones are laid out, sounds would resonate within the structure comparable to a concert hall, apparently. Maybe then Stonehenge was a place for musical rituals, perhaps to amplify their healing properties. So it kind of goes again with the religious sort of thing where they do like maybe like musical ceremonies to like amplify the healing.
Well, not even necessarily religious properties, just in general, just art. Maybe they had some kind of expression.
You can imagine there being like choral praise or songs. Choral. Where you can imagine it, if something resonates a good sound, a lot of religious stuff is song or hymn related, isn't it? You can, if we're kind of thinking the religious element again, you could quite feasibly have a structure that's built to amplify your songs to the gods, or for whatever reason that you're wanting the acoustic properties. Or I guess the other thing is, could it just be coincidence that it happens to be circular, but the stones resonating is bizarre? That's bizarre. Ringing like a bell. That's crazy.
To sort of reinforce the acoustic sort of theory, there are these things called lithophones, which are musical instruments made of pieces of rock, basically.
Okay.
Carved in a certain way, or?
Yeah, I think so. There's like examples all throughout history. There's like modern examples as well. But there's like this thing called a rock gong, which was found in Africa. And it's basically like, it's a gong, but with a massive rock instead of
Instead of metal,
cool.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting, actually.
So there is evidence that they use stones for musical purposes in history. Whether the stones at Stonehenge do that, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to sort of think about. Yeah, so that's kind of like a cool little sciencey.
Yeah, I like that one.
Sciencey theory.
Science and culture.
Science and culture. It's like we're playing Civ. Okay, so what you were going on about before, Sean, with like the layout of the station stones and stuff like that, you can sort of like draw alignments on the monument to do like star sign sort of stuff.
Okay.
And that's why they think the station stones were like a rectangle originally with two others. So there's all these sort of like astronomical theories around Stonehenge.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even think of that.
So like we discussed in episode 4 with the Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge shows a strange astronomical alignment. It's aligned northeast-southwest, and lines up with both the winter solstice sunset and the summer solstice sunrise. In fact, on this sunrise, the sun's rays pass over the heel stone and go directly into the monument between the arms of the horseshoe arrangement.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, this is going back to that bloody episode where my brain was just like, wait, what? How?
Yeah,
Wait,
when it
what?
was lined up with magnetic north.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so this is like the thing you mentioned before with people going there with the solstice. It's still celebrated nowadays, and thousands of tourists visiting Stonehenge every year go there to observe this. In the case of the winter solstice, if we turn 180 degrees from the sunrise alignment, at the precise moment of the sunset, the sun falls exactly between the largest sarsen stones. So if you imagine, like, there's a Stone Age society, right? And then some people are like the heads of the religious sort of stuff. And if you imagine they've built this monument to predict solstices and like farming seasons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that would really be a way to gain power in the community. And that's sort of like the whole theory that this puts forward. Like, it was used as a massive calendar to track celestial events.
That's astonishing.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That is, oh, for God's sake. No, humans didn't build it. It was aliens.
Well,
yes.
I mean, yeah.
It's cool, though, isn't it? Because like the solstices would have been important to Neolithic people, right? Because they would mark the farming seasons. So it would be very important to know when the farming season is coming and when it's coming to an end.
Yeah, I suppose at this point, like, because it's hard, because I'm imagining this before the wheel being a thing, right?
Yeah.
Farming doesn't really come into my expectation of this. I'm still imagining like Neanderthals in this sort of time period, but I'm guessing it's a lot closer to.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been Homo sapien.
Yeah, I'm understanding that, but
well,
at what level
the way to think about it. So it's after we're talking between Wood Age and Bronze Age, aren't we?
Yes.
That tells you what they can do. So they didn't have anything. They would have had weapons made of stone, tools made of stone.
So would they have the concept of farming then? Because that's the thing that caught my eye.
Okay, so from a quick Google search, farming was around about 10,000 BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So long before.
So yeah, that really fills into theory then. So
is there anything else about this, Alex, that you might have looked into? So, for example, is it a sundial in any way? Because it's like a solar calendar, but is it does it tell the time as much as the date?
On the first picture, on the top down thing, it says arrow marking sunrise and sunset at the solstices. So you could be right on where the heelstone is.
Yeah, this is what I mentioned before, because the sunrise passes over the heelstone and then goes into the middle of the monument. And then if you turn 180 degrees from that, the sunset from the winter solstice does the opposite. It goes into the monument.
Because those are two events in one orbit of the sun, aren't they? That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
So the longest day and the shortest day. But does it track lunar cycle? Does it track time of day? Does it track, I guess, season? Is there like between the summer solstice and the winter solstice, is there a halfway point between so you know when spring, when the autumn is? You didn't come across anything like that? I
mostly looked into this calendar theory that it sets these two events mostly.
Okay, sure.
But I did see pictures of people like drawing loads of lines between the stones for like, I guess, star signs sort of stuff. And I don't know how much credence to that is, and I guess it depends on whether you believe in, is it astronomy? Astrology? Astronomy. Whether you believe in all the astronomy stuff.
Well, someone does.
Yeah, some people do.
I bet Tom Cruise does.
No, he's passed astronomy into something more insane.
You can catch me, gay thoughts. Family Guy.
The thing that has nothing to do with anything that we've talked about, but the very first picture that is on that document, really bizarrely looks exactly like the cross section of an eyeball anatomically.
Oh my god!
If you search eye
I see what you mean.
and then look at the cross section of it, it's bizarre how much it looks like an eyeball. And obviously there's no way that's thinking, but that was the first thing I thought when you looked at it. It's like it's a giant eye, and it's like maybe something's looking down at the world from above. Dun, dun, dun.
Or maybe it's looking up.
Oh my god.
Or maybe...
Oh my god, maybe it's a giant eyeball, and it's giant.
It's a second eye, because there's an eye in the eye of the Sahara from the last episode.
Maybe the world is a giant.
Oh.
Oh my god, the world has 2 eyes. Do they line up very well? I guess they don't because it would be south, right?
Yeah,
You'd have to like turn the world 90
sideways.
degrees.
Although
Yeah.
the giant could be on its side.
It could be lying down. Or
Maybe its nose is Everest.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but didn't they? Oh, I don't know.
I reckon that it's going to be like the Teletubbies, where for some reason the world has a face and it's a child's face and it just starts talking. The sun in the sky.
I have awoken my children. Tom Cruise actually knows the truth of the world.
He does.
You must follow him. Scientology is true.
That would be amazing. It wouldn't be, but it would be amazing.
Okay. The horrible dystopian world that we've
Yep.
just
That we
pictured.
just pictured, yeah.
Okay, so that's all the theories I've got, basically. All the research I've done. So I guess we'll wrap up from here. So if we do the provenance sort of stuff first, where we think the stones came from. So firstly, do we think they came from Wales? The geology seems to support it quite well. And also the archaeological evidence.
Yeah, but it's always the question of how they got there. That's
So we'll assume they came from Wales.
Yeah.
So do you think they were moved by glaciers or by people?
People.
mixture of both, maybe?
Maybe.
The glaciers could have moved the rocks to a certain location. Well, would a glacier, correct me if I'm wrong, would a glacier run into the sea?
Yeah, they could have dropped them into the sea.
That's what I mean. So maybe...
I think it would be hard to fish them out from the seabed. But it's possible they could have
No,
moved.
I mean, like, it would have dropped the rest of them into the sea, which is why we don't see where many of them are. And then the majority of the ones that were nearby, they kind of picked up or dragged or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because these stones have been arranged. They obviously have. They wouldn't have just fallen in the way that they have, right? So if people can manipulate them in that sort of way where they ended up in that way, then people would have been able to move them. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
The glacier thing's cool. It's a good idea. I do like glaciers as a thing. I think they're amazing. But I don't think they would have been associated with it. Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. The thing that ruins the glacier theory for me is the fact that we don't see similar deposits in the area.
Yeah, that's what I forgot to mention as well.
It's interesting for you to say that they could have been moved part of the way by glaciers and then the rest of the way by people, but it still assumes that the people moved them, which is a very big task.
Yeah. I think the most likely explanation is that people are gonna have moved them. But I think you have to just assume that it's taken centuries to move them properly, and therefore something has orchestrated that process.
Yeah.
So what do you reckon, what's your favourite theory on why it was built? So we've got alien stuff, we've got a cemetery, we've got the healing sort of stuff, we've got like a team building event.
It's similar to the pyramid thing with the whole, not astronomy, astrology. No? Astronomy?
Astronomy.
Yeah, astrology is the zodiac and stuff like that, isn't it? Yeah, and astronomy is actual looking into space and okay, so I think that's personally pretty cool, the way it all kind of lines up.
Do you reckon it was a massive calendar?
Yeah, the Mayan calendar, that's a thing, isn't it?
It is.
That was a primitive calendar. If it was built over quite a few years, they would have had a lot of chance to perfect it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mm-hmm. So what do you reckon, Stuart?
Yeah, I personally like the idea that from everything we've talked about, I think the most likely thing for me is going to be that it had some sort of religious connotation, whether it was healing or pilgrimage, and it attracted people of faith who perhaps sought it out as the opportunity to get divine intervention for their illness. They therefore either they would have survived and maybe contributed to the local society, or they would have died and been their remains dealt with in a way that befitted the pilgrimage that they'd made, i.e. cremated at the site that they'd travelled to. I wonder whether or not over time, the stones have been structured to give a calendar property as a byproduct of everybody pilgrim. If you're attracting loads and loads of people to a site of pilgrimage, it's also going to bring other theories and things about it with it. So could it have been a byproduct of so many minds being gathered together that it resulted in the summer solstice and the winter solstice stone being there? Because I don't know what came first. And it's the only stone that isn't touched, isn't it? You said it was like a rubbly kind of rock. It hasn't been carved. So whether or not it was put there later, I think it's hard to tell. But that seems like the most likely thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I think you've explained my thoughts quite well. With all the healing sort of stuff, and like
Yeah.
people would go there to be healed because they believe it would work because of like religious reasons or whatever.
Yeah.
And then as a byproduct, it's become a burial site
Mm-hmm.
because you've had all these people dying there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also quite like the acoustic sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
that
forgot
is
about that
really
one.
cool.
Yeah.
It's something that I'd have to test myself to believe. I'd have to like go there and like hit a rock with a hammer
And then get arrested.
And then get arrested.
for defacing a very important British monument.
World monument. It's a heritage site, isn't it?
It's a World
Oh,
Heritage
yeah,
Site,
I
isn't
guess
it?
so, yeah.
You would be lynched.
Do you reckon if I went there with a mallet, they'd take the mallet off me, like before I got in? Did they like frisk you?
I don't know. Well, right, okay. It's not exactly cordoned off or anything, is it?
I think it is.
It is cordoned off. So
Okay.
the reason you can tell it's cordoned off is because if you Google Stonehenge, and bearing in mind it's 9:30 at night, currently says that Stonehenge is closed. Apparently it opens at 9:30 tomorrow morning. It literally, Stonehenge works 9:30 to 5 every day. It's doing all right,
Oh
isn't
my god.
Because in my head, then it was just like in the middle of a field, and you could just kind of hike there.
I think
So,
you can.
I'm kind of glad that it is cordoned off and protected.
Yeah, I think it is actually in a field and you can hike there, but like they've built a thing around it, like a fence, to stop
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
walking up to it and taking blue stones and making
Or-
healing talismans.
Hitting it, hoping that it makes a bell ringing noise.
Oh, but for the science.
Well, there's got to be some kind of. This has got to be protected, right?
Yeah, well, it
There's
is.
got to
It's
be like a
yeah.
24-hour guard that watches it because
Like a mole
people are
cop.
pricks and they don't.
Stonehenge.
They would graffiti the fuck out of this.
It actually is graffitied.
Oh,
There's
is
like
it?
Stone Age graffiti on it.
Oh,
of,
it was
like,
Stone Age
tools and
graffiti,
stuff.
like
I wonder if they drew a cock on it.
the Slipknot S.
That old S. Like, I think every kid in high school
kid,
drew that
yeah.
Yeah,
S.
with the six
Even
lines.
like in America, kids drew that S for some reason.
Yeah, it's ingrained. Like Stonehenge S. No,
Ah,
maybe.
it transcends cultures. The Stonehenge S.
No, I like the acoustic one as well. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's really hard because I'm trying to think of what is most realistic in regards to what would have been like which theory would be most appropriate for the people of that time. So, like, we're talking about the healing thing. Like, would they understand that? Obviously, they would understand illness and people not feeling great and limbs falling off or whatever. I don't know. It's hard to ignore that and not have a theory about it. But from that, I like the healing thing. But I don't know. Like, would that have been around about the same time where they would actually start looking up and thinking about the stars and the astronomy of it? And then even, I like the acoustic thing because it kind of fits that, man hit rock, make sound, man happy. You know what I mean?
That's the title of the episode right there.
Man hit rock.
Man hit
happy.
rock, make sound, man happy. It's a bit long, but I'm gonna make it happen.
When I say this, I haven't got anything else to say, basically, apart from one thing to just kind of conclude my opinion on it.
Go for it.
Okay, so my feeling on this is that I find it really interesting because it is so open. I feel like this is the most open and indecipherable thing. Like, it's really hard to pick a theory on it because it's all so vague. But
Yeah.
not necessarily in a bad way, because it is so mysterious. It is literally, it's so old that we can't really comprehend a lot of the things and the reasons that it might have been made. When you get to like the Mary Celeste, there's like, it's like
There's actual
tangible
papers.
evidence and, records and theories already built around it that are factual. But then like archaeology, dating the rocks and stuff, it's a ballpark figure. You can't date exactly the minute it was dropped and then dragged and stuff like that. So I really like this one because it's so open.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you could debate a lot of the theories over and over again. And if you spoke to a different person every time, I think you'd get almost a fully different opinion based on how they interpret the information in front of them.
Exactly. Like, even when it comes to Atlantis, that is technically quite open, but it's all backed up by the fact that the story came from one source.
Yeah.
Like, what's the story of Stonehenge? Is there any actual recordings or anything anywhere that would stay?
The earliest stuff is what I said from that Joffrey of Monmouth.
Yeah.
Merlin story.
Yeah.
That was like the 12th century, I think.
Exactly. So we're not obviously discounting any theory, I guess, but, well, we can. But this is what I mean. Like, everything's so vague.
What do you mean?
Like it.
It's clearly a UFO site. It's circular. It makes sense.
Circular. It has stations that point the way to the. It's like
there's stations.
Yeah.
Stations. It makes sense. Perfect. Yeah, but the thing is with Stonehenge is it kind of like suffers from the archaeological thing where they kind of just use common sense and assume it was like ceremonial or like religious. Like they often say like, oh, we found this cool artifact. It was probably ceremonial. Just because there's no evidence of like what the fuck it was.
But going back to the Occam's razor thing, like, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's got an altar there. It's a fairly grandiose structure.
Yeah.
A lot of it points towards religion, doesn't it?
Does anyone ever dig underneath it? What if there's a tomb underneath it?
I'm sure they must have x-rayed or ultrasounded their way underneath it, surely.
Can they do that? Well, obviously. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
But I don't know what it would have shown.
I think that's how they found a lot of like the Z and Y hole.
Yeah. Okay.
Sort of like stuff like that.
What if they're breathing holes?
For the eyeball.
Everyone needs holes poked in their eyeballs.
Yeah, I'm done. I've got nothing.
Yeah, but if you've got a theory and you're listening, let us know on Twitter at Rome Podcast or in a comment below the video on whatever site you're listening to us on. That was a really good sentence I made there. Yeah, but in the words of Ylvis, was it truly a granite birthday cake or a prison far too easy to escape? We'll never know.
Yeah.
I need to watch this video.
It was your homework and you didn't do it. God damn it.
Classic.
Just before we end, I'd like to thank 1000 Whispering for their comments on the last episode. If you want to be featured in the next episode, please leave a comment or review on the website of your choice. We are currently available on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify and YouTube. All the links are available on Twitter at Rome Podcast, that's ROAM Podcast. Thank you for listening and we'll see you next time.
Bye!